In our last video, we talked about why it's critical to generate a passive income to stay rich. But to do that, we need to have a large pot of cash or investable assets to start off with. So how do we get there? Hi, I'm the Success Engineer, and today we're going to answer that question in this video. But first, I want us to do a thought exercise. I'm going to name a product or a service, and I want you to tell me who you think the most popular or biggest brand in that space is. For example, coffee. What's the first brand that you think of? Well, to take a look at the answer, let's pop over to our screen. And as you can see in the U.S. coffee shop market in number sizes, in this little slide over here, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner, leading coffee shop brands is definitely headed above by Starbucks over here. They're far more in terms of number of outlets than Dunkin' and JB owned brands, etc., which are the smaller coffee shops that are out there. Let's just say now, if you're thinking about burgers, right? What do you have? If you're thinking about burgers, you're probably thinking of McDonald's. So here's the little bar graph, and from what you can see here, the yellow portion represents McDonald's, and if you take a look, Taco Bell is represented by this purplish blue. Subway, which isn't really a burger, is by green, but this is the only graph I could find in short order that represents also Burger King and Wendy's. And if you take a look, even if Wendy's and Burger King combine their numbers together, they still don't even get close to what McDonald's comes up as. And lastly, if you're thinking of sneakers, what brand do you think of? Answer is Nike. They basically reign over the sneaker world, and as you can see here, compared to Adidas, Puma, and all the other brands, they're above everybody else heads and shoulders. So as you can see from the diagrams I showed, if you want to make a lot of money, you have to be the absolute best in your field. Now, unlike the brands that I just mentioned, you and I are human beings and not companies. So if you're like most normal, everyday people, you're probably making your money by doing a job or earning active income, right? So how do we make sure that we can make the most and the best amount of money in our active income? Now, this is something I've been preaching for a long time. Work as hard as you can, be as valuable as you can be to your company so you can earn the experience necessary to propel your career. I'm going to repeat that again because this is important. Work as hard as you can, be as valuable as you can be, earn the experience. I'm going to make a video game analogy as to why. If you ever played an RPG or a role-playing game, it's a type of game where you start off with a very weak character. At first, you fight small monsters, pick up on experience points, and over time, your character becomes strong enough to fight bigger monsters for more experience points, more gold, and at some point, your character can even fight some dark, evil boss monster that wants to destroy the world. Now, believe it or not, your work path and your career is not that too far off. Case in point, say if somebody starts playing that same game I mentioned for a day or two and said, nah, this isn't for me. Hey, nothing wrong with that. The character stays the same after they log off. But if they come back later because their friends have been playing it for a few months now and are all into it, and that person's going to find out that they've fallen behind with respect to their friends. Now, I've seen this happen a lot, though, multiple times in my life, whether it was college or work post-grad, but in the opposite way, meaning it hits the real world, where some of my friends and peers went to school for a bit, decided it wasn't for them, which is fine. But instead of taking the time now to change and learn a trade or develop some other important skill, they decide to play World of Warcraft, go party, chase girls, or just have fun in general and not focus on building work for a career and things of that nature. Now, I want to take a moment to emphasize, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having fun and doing what you want as long as you're not trampling on other people's rights. It's a free country after all. But there are consequences to those actions, though. And the scary part is by the time that those same people realize that, hey, I partied too hard and I had too much fun, I want to start focusing now on work and building career. Guess what? Two problems. Number one, they're already fallen behind on their work or job skills. So it could be working with computers and now they're behind in tech, or they're working with their hands and their skills in terms of building things or crafting something isn't up to par with other people that are coming onto the field. Number two, even if they want to catch up, they simply don't have the time to learn new skills between working at a regular job, and then as you get older, chances are you have probably maybe getting hitched, having kids, taking care of their parents, other responsibilities go up the ladder, and now you're tied up. So what happens? You're basically kind of stuck at this certain range or interval of income where because you can't develop yourself or the product to become more appealing, now it's basically kind of like going back to the sneaker analogy. Let's just say you go to your local cafe or Costco brand sneakers. Why isn't it selling for a lot more dollars? Well, the fact is, it's not selling for that many dollars because it sells for that lower price. That's the reason why people are buying it. Now, on the other hand, at a Starbucks for coffee or at Nike for sneakers, you sometimes have people queued out the line just to buy those items. Why? Because those are perceived to be the market leaders. Those are perceived to be the best in terms of products and stuff like that. Now, in your younger years, this is my just personal opinion, you need to take a lot of responsibility to work hard and get a lot of experience points as quickly as possible. Because the other truth is, and this is the dark truth that most people don't understand, you make the bulk of your income in your later years. So if you think about, if you have, let's just say, a car race, you get off to a poor start, and the other guy has a perfect start where he hits the accelerator just at the right moment. It doesn't matter how far you can accelerate, how much you can accelerate. Even if you have a poor start, you're going to be that much far behind. Another case in point: if you know anybody wealthy or successful in your family or circle of friends, ask them point blank, when did you make the majority of your money that you have income-wise? In other words, when did you actually have the most amount of income? I'm not talking about investments. I'm not talking about savings. Just raw dollars that they make in a per year basis. Did they make more money earlier in their career, or did they make more money later in their career? 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be later. Why? Because only later in their career do they have the skills, experience, and knowledge that's necessary to make them a more valuable employee, or if they're in a business, they'll know how to market and sell their products and services as effectively as possible. I also want to mention one thing, which has been bothering me a lot for, to be honest with you, a long time now. And I've seen this mostly online, where you have online forums or groups like Reddit or Facebook, with a lot of people saying, oh, don't work too hard at your job. You're not going to make any more money. So just do the bare minimum, maybe more. Just enjoy life. You never know if you're going to be alive tomorrow. Again, it's a free country. If that's what you want to do, hey, good for you. But here are the facts. Number 1, average American life expectancy is about 79 years. 2, the average person expects to retire at 65 years. So if you saw my last video, we talked about median net worth, if you remember, which was around $266,000 for somebody that is just about to enter retirement at around 65 years old. So if you work out those numbers, the blunt truth is, even in terms of a passive, realistic return of an income for 10%, at 10% at 266, that's barely $27,000 pre-tax. The average American retiree, to be blunt, is in a heap of trouble. Basically, the fact is, people, unfortunately, in that stage, they're never going to be able to actually and fully retire. At best, they're going to have to work part-time to supplement their income. Now, I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, better spend your money now while you're still young and enjoy it. But these will be the same people that will also be massively underfunded for their retirement. Along the same line of thought too, this is another thing a lot of people realize: if you do have valuable job skills and your job doesn't pay you well, has the thought occurred to you just quit and move on to someplace else? Especially now, there are more employers that want to pay more, especially with the whole Great Resignation than ever before. So this is a perfect time. If you've been able to collect your experience points and build your job skills, the world is your oysters. Another thought: when I was working for other people, other companies, I always tried to work hard and do my best. Now, a lot of people would say it's foolish because, hey, I wasn't necessarily getting paid more for working harder, which is true. But for me, the payment for myself was really earning more experience. And that's what I started realizing after working so long at the Chinese Takeout, which I'll go over in my next future video. And the fact that I liked my work now, which is a key component, which, once again, I'll go over in my next future video. So to wrap up the first few points, you can only make money and active income by developing more skills. But therein lies the trap that a lot of people fall into. And I want you to keep this in mind. First, when you work for your dollars, think of your dollars as seeds. You have 2 options when you get your seeds. You can either, option 1, eat the seeds as they come in, which is what most people do. And then as they get more seeds, as they get older, they increase their spending budget, upgrade their lifestyle, etc. Or option 2, you can plant your seeds, and every 7 to 8 years, those seeds grow up and spits out 2 more seeds. Now, in the meantime, in order for more seeds to be had and for us to keep ahead, you now need to keep outputting more and produce more. So you got 2 more choices to make now. Option A, You can work more hours to output more, which is, to be honest with you, unrealistic and not sustainable for most people. Or option B, you can get more experience, which is what I've been pushing in this video, upgrade your skills, offer more valuable services that an employer or the market wants. Now, these are two choices and two separate sets of decisions. That's fundamentally the crux of the problem that I see that stops most people from being wealthy / getting rich, whatever you want to call it, because they have to make these two very hard choices. And again, the first choice is, one, you have to gain a lot of experience and as quickly as you can to become more valuable and make more money, which means hard work. Second choice is not to increase your level of spending as you're growing in your career to make more money and stuff. Yes, I know it feels good to eat your C's or spend money, whatever you want to call it, but the question is, does it make your soul feel full? Are you actually happy? Because I'm going to get back to you on this. Think about the last 3 major purchases that you did. Did you really need to buy those things? Would you have rather been just as happy buying something similar but less expensive? In other words, instead of buying, say, Starbucks, if you're into that, would a homemade brewed coffee, would that have sufficed? Or instead of buying Nike, would the Costco no-name brand been just as good? I gotta be honest, just my personal experience, I lived like a pauper up until only relatively recently. After I moved out of my parents, I lived in a small, barely 700 square foot, maybe 800 square foot, 2-bedroom apartment for 10 years. Yet in the meantime, I owned 67 doors out of state, a bit over 14 acres of farmland, and 6 stores locally, all of which are much better looking and much nicer than where I live. I still don't have a nice house right now, and I'm in the process of building one out. But from day one, even in terms of cars, I drove Econo boxes, basically got beater cars, until a CPA eventually educated me on the ways of Uncle Sam and how the mathematics of actually leasing and expensing a car and then leasing something nicer rather, and then buying it at the end actually tactically makes more sense. Even in terms of clothing, I barely spend more than $200 on clothes a year. Most of the wardrobe that you see, even this jacket, is 10 plus years old, or this t-shirt is from Costco, I barely spend anything. Does this mean that I'm saying, hey, never live life, never spend any money? No, that's not it at all. I lived like a pauper for close to 20 years and made savings an absolute priority. That's for me. I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but I'm saying that's how it got me to where I am today. I know it sounds like cliche, but happiness is a state of mind. So, why is saving so important? Why do I prioritize so much? Let me just give you a basic math example. Let's just say we have somebody at the 75 percentile, right? Meaning that person is an above average earner because, hey, they push themselves, they have a lot of experience. So if we now slide over into this little diagram, lo and behold, if you take a look here at the 75 percentile, you could be making roughly $75,000 a year, right? So Uncle Sam takes about 1/3, so that person has about $50,000 left, right? Even if they push absolutely really hard and spend just 50% of that, meaning they live like a pauper, spend only $2,000 a month or $25,000 a year, then they can put away the other $25,000 and save it up. Now, let's just assume for the sake of argument that investment returns and inflation is basically a wash. You're not going to have any more return. You're just basically putting into a savings account, and inflation matches up your rate of return, whatever, just for simple math. Then at the end of 20 years, you have $500,000. Properly invested at a 10% return, that provides a nice, realistic $50,000 return per year, all without touching the principal. And that's the most realistic and most surefire way of getting enough capital to properly set up passive income. Now, to summarize this long video, I just really have 3 points. 1, once you start spending money, make savings a top priority. Do not spend your money except for essentials. Number 2, as you get older, you need to pick up a lot of experience to become more valuable. Don't waste your time and dilly-dallying on things that are frankly not important. Number 3, as you get more experience and generate more income, keep your spending in check. Keeping up with Joneses, it's a death sentence in a lot of people's financial plans. Now, not to say that I agree with everything that Dave Ramsey says, but there's a lot of truth in sacrificing in the short term and being able to enjoy the long term. He has a saying that basically goes something like, by living like no one else right now, later you can live like no one else. Basically what it means that you're not spending as much as your peers, you don't have the nice things like your peers, like a nice car, a nice house, but later on, guess what? You are going to have those things, and you're going to have money flowing in automatically without really having to do much at all, but it does require a lot of sacrifice up front. Now, here's the million-dollar question. How come I haven't gone insane yet with all the work that I do? In fact, I'm recording this right now at almost 11 p.m. and I've been up since 7 a.m. this morning. The answer? I love the work that I do. And once you figure out the work that you love to do, it doesn't become work anymore. And that, my friends, will allow you to work 10, 11, 12 hours a day continuously, building your experience and making you that much more valuable on the marketplace. But what if I like playing video games all day? Does that mean that that should be my career? Well, if you're the best in League of Legends and play on esports teams, maybe. But more realistically, it's a balance between finding what I call your reason for being, or Akagi. It's basically looking for what you love to do, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you're good at, which we'll go over in the next video. So I had a lot of fun making this video series so far, and if you enjoyed this video, press the like button. If you have your own thoughts to share on how to build a nest egg to generate passive income, feel free to share it in the comments, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my next video. Hope to see you on the next one.